Hey everybody, this is Mike Oppenheim, and you are listening to Coffin Talk, Interviews with the Living, a weekly podcast that explores how our views on death affect the way we live our life. This week we have a return guest, someone I'm very excited to talk to. He's a good friend at this point. His name is Sean O'Grady. He goes by Shawnee Cameras online, and he was born and raised in the DC area. He was a guest on our podcast for episode 98, which is still free and not behind a paywall, so you can catch up and listen to that. Or you can just start listening now. Welcome to the show, Sean. How's it going?
Hey, Mike. Thanks for having me back, man. Really great to be here.
Yeah, and today is like one of my favorite days. It's the Friday letdown after Thanksgiving. I think most people have the day off and they're sleeping in, and you and I did not sleep in.
Nope, never can, never will.
Same here. To catch people up, the way I billed you on the last podcast was as a recovering alcoholic. Do you still use that term, and is that still the right term?
Yeah, I mean, gratefully, I'm 7.5 years sober. I just got off of a meeting. I just got off of a phone call with fellowshipping one of the guys from the room. Just really lovely man. I've been friends with for 6 years out here in the program, and grateful to still be trudging the road, as we say.
Yeah. So congrats, first of all. And then second to that, as far as the billing went, but not in your life, you're also a more than accomplished photographer. I want to brag about him in front of him, but I'll just say that the names he would drop are probably much bigger than this one, but because I'm old-fashioned and lame and I come from like the 80s, he's met Slash and worked with Slash from Guns N' Roses, and that's the coolest thing in the world. Who's the person that would most impress someone under 40?
Well, I would have to say that one of the highlights of this year were two, and they were in the same day back to back. I was lucky enough. Well, it was actually four. So I do have a mild relationship with the Kelsey brothers because of an old friend of mine actually produces their podcast. And I did some work for them last year for their Beer Bowl championship at the Jersey Shore, which was really cool. And they actually record like right across the street from me in Santa Monica. They happen to be in town on the same day, which it never happens. You know, the podcast is produced remotely, one in Philly and one wherever Travis is. And I get a call from the producer, and he's like, "Hey, can you come in? The boys are going to come in. We have two big guests. I can't tell you who it is. And I need you to DP and do photos." DP, director of photography, is setting up the video cameras and adjust the lighting and the set design and all those things to make sure it was, appropriate, because we had to flip the set. So I show up and I'm setting up and I'm like, "Can you tell me who the guests are?" And he goes, "Yeah, so we have Arnold Schwarzenegger first, and then we have Little Dicky." And that just like scratches two itches from two different generations of my life. And they did not disappoint. Arnold is a true gentleman. He actually took a moment, which was really hilarious. I think it's in the pre-roll. I don't know if it made it to the actual broadcast, but the way it's set up, there's like 18 people around. And the set is very small, and there's three cameras, and I guess like my foot was like kind of like in one of like the B or C camera. And the producer's like, "Hey, Sean, like I need you to move your foot, like we see you." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And Arnold turns and he looks at me and he goes, "What? Like, what are you doing? Did Sly send you? You're already throwing this thing off the rails." And I'm just got so small and so red, and it was just such an amazing moment. Arnold saw me. He saw me.
Yeah. That's
and
really
it's cool because, well, also I'll end really quick because I know there's more stuff to talk about.
No, this is great. This is awesome.
I used to see him growing up in Maryland because he was married to Maria Shriver, and they lived in Maryland, in Montgomery County. And I would see him and them drive around, as a kid, in the height of the 80s and the early 90s.
Yeah.
And now, to be with him in this closed set, in this amazing environment, his book is phenomenal too. And now I see him biking too, because he comes down and parks up on Wilshire and then rides his big motorized bike to Venice and Gold's Gym and works out every day. So I was overseas and I got back a few weeks ago, and I'm out for my morning run at like 7 or 8 a.m. And I'm at the stoplight, waiting across the street, and there he is coming down the hill in all his glory. And I was like, oh, it's good to be back in LA.
Wow. That's so cool.
It was great.
Yeah.
That was a really long-winded story for you, but yeah,
No,
I think it was worth it.
I like it a lot, and I have to admit that Arnold is bigger than Slash technically. Like he really is, and Little Dicky's big to certain people, so don't get me wrong. But
yeah, great interview too, though. He was great, and Gator was there too, which is awesome because I love Gator. If you watch the show or listen to the music,
that's cool. No, I'm not a big enough fan, but I kind of build myself to my audience as that. Like I'm definitely the number of times I've been surprised that someone's famous. And then the Kelsey brothers, even if you don't like them and even if you hate like the Taylor Swift mania and the NFL crossovers, they're still fascinating people, and that's just a fascinating like slice of life. And then also just to see like these people be humans, because like one thing I hear all the time from people who meet famous people is like somehow it's inexplainable, but when the cameras are off, they are different. And maybe that's not true universally, but is that something you feel?
Honestly, man, I can really count on one hand, and I'm not going to name them, like people that I dislike or
cool.
like, or that do kind of like fit that mold you just said. But I can attest because, probably guys are hating on, the Kelsey brothers, like, oh, he's a douche, she dates Taylor. Like, but dude, they're both super nice. You know what I mean? Cool. Like, I got to know, and I don't know him personally. I don't know his favorite color or his birthday or anything, but I worked with Travis, pre-Taylor, and then I worked with him in the middle of Taylor, and like, he's still super nice guy. Hey, nice to see you again. Awesome. Thanks for being here. Same with his brother. Like, I don't have a bad word to say about them. I definitely don't have a bad word to say about Slash. He was a super gentleman.
Awesome.
Arnold was a gentleman, and I get, the great thing about recovery is in LA, I get to see a lot of these guys
That's cool.
in the rooms.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I get to hear some really wild personal shit, which of course I will never tell anybody. And I'm not going to, break their anonymity of who I get to see. Mm-hmm. But I get to see a lot of these people at very human levels. And there's, people, TV, film, radio, music, like we put these people on these pedestals, and everybody forgets that, dude, they take shit just like us. They have fears. They have favorite colors. They have favorite foods. Like, they're just people that are just elevated in this mythos and populace that the world has put them in. But we're all just people, bro. And it's just nice to know, like, a lot of these people are just normal people. A lot of them.
Cool. Yeah, no. And the ones who aren't, even in a weird way, that is normal, because it's like the LA Hollywood culture. So it's, yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of recovery, I have like a weird question to ask that came from my weird mind, but I think my guess is you've thought about it, and it's not going to be like that exciting for you. But I've recently realized, and this is actually, I wrote an article about this, and it's coming out tomorrow. This podcast will come out later, so I'm just explaining to you the order of operations in my head. But basically, it has dawned on me over and over again throughout my life that our culture, specifically the American culture you and I live in, doesn't just like offer alcohol at nearly every event. But this is the part I want to ask you about to start with. You're supposed to declare, like, I'm sober or I'm not drinking if you go to a party. Like, it's not actually okay to just, like, show up and not drink. You have to, like, say something. And the reason I'm saying this is otherwise people are going to repeatedly ask you, or like, oh, your drink's empty, can I get you one? So first of all, is that true? Do you feel like, not a pressure, I'm not putting a negative spin on it, but is it true that if you show up to a social event, it's easier for you as a recovering alcoholic to announce to the host, or at the very least someone in charge of drinks, that you're not drinking?
No. In my own personal experience, this is not a universal truth, so I don't want to speak for all sober people or all, Alcoholics Anonymous or anything along those lines. But what I will say to that effect is to like have a backup plan, right? So I bring like, carbonated water with me, to places I know that that's what's going to happen, because 99% of the people that are going to be there are not going to be in recovery or not drinking, right? So instead of making my host backpedal or make them feel bad or whatever, I bring things that I know I need, and that's what I need, because I am an anxious person. Whether I'm kind of like we have an expression, like, be like a duck on a pond, like you're calm up front, but you're paddling like hell underneath. And that's really like what my veneer is. My veneer is I like to think I'm super calm out front, but inside, like, it's basically dynamite exploding all the time. So I need something in my hand to kind of just have in my hand, not because I feel like I'm being ostracized or I just need that. And when I was drinking, I was, a mess because I would always have alcoholic beverages in my hand and I would drink them quicker than everybody else and more than everybody else. So I don't feel the need that you need to announce yourself, because then, like also in the program, now you're making it about you and you're inflating your ego, and it's like you need to calm down. But if you're good friends with the host, then they'll know that about you and they'll have something set up for you too. Like, I don't go to random parties either. Like, I'm pretty boring. I don't go to these Hollywood Hill parties where they sacrifice goats and shit. Like, I'm just a normal dude, and I bring my own solution with me, and I don't think it's good to announce things like that, because I do see a lot of people announce that they're not drinking, but yet they microdose and go hiking and Runyon Canyon and they and smoke vapes. But all of a sudden, because today's Wednesday, they haven't had a drink in 2 days, they like to declare to the world that they're sober when it's not true. And I'm just like, just get the over yourself, dude.
Okay, so you actually hit like the main theme I wanted to talk about, but I do want to quickly just comment on the fact that I find it hilarious that you feel bad for making a host feel bad. So you go out of your way to make sure that it's not going to be on them. I just find that incredibly interesting. It's also courteous, so don't get me wrong, I'm not making fun of you, but I am still seeing something hilarious about American society, which is that the onus of like feeling bad is now put on the person who already, and this is my wording, doesn't fit into what we say you're supposed to fit into, which is you're a U.S. citizen. Well, then you should be able to show up to a party, have a couple drinks, go home, and not have it be a problem. Like, that's like the underlying theme of our society, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, and that's a sister program really at work in Al-Anon, where it's having codependent issues. Like, oh no, I don't want you to feel bad, so let me feel bad, and that's a whole other path and trajectory that we don't need to go down.
Yeah, I know, that's even funnier, but yeah. Well, so
it's having empathy too. Just they have enough to deal with, and making sure everything goes right. Like, I don't need to make that your problem. It's my problem. Yeah. It's my thing. Let me take care of it.
And that's really cool, and I agree with all that, and I wasn't even out on a mission to get anyone to say anything like you or anyone else, but what I am on a mission to understand is, and you nailed it, it suddenly occurred to me that I don't even know what the definition of sober should be, and I'm not talking about, like, California sober, people who smoke weed and don't drink. I'm talking about, like, what exactly is escaping and what is sobriety, and, like, in your opinion, do you experience life very, very differently than most people? Because most people take chemicals that make life feel different and then take them again or don't take them again. And if this needs clarification, I absolutely can clarify.
No, I got it, dude. I love these memes that are going around about like raw dogging. Like,
yeah. Can you explain that for our audience real quick? Yeah.
I love, so it's like a picture of like usually a dude. I don't think I've seen a woman do this yet, or a they them, but like, it's usually like a dude, usually a white dude, staring directly ahead at like a 3/4 profile shot with sweat. And it's like, just raw dog, a 14-hour flight, no headphones, no meal, no bathroom breaks, no music, no magazine, just pure staring ahead. And that's like life, dude. It's like we're raw dogging life. We are literally taking it all and dealing with all the emotions. And don't feel bad for us. That's not what that statement is. It's just we are literally experiencing all of life at once. And gratefully, some of us that are lucky enough to have a program, a fellowship, a routine, and spiritual tools in the toolkit are able to kind of deal with life on life's terms, which is directly out of the book, Life on Life's Terms. We're dealing with life. And I have no problem with people taking medication as directed by a doctor that's needed for depression or anxiety or dual diagnosis, like schizophrenia or bipolar, whatever. You need those things and you should take them. And gratefully, I don't take any medication, and I'm not California sober. I don't smoke weed or take edibles or gummies.
I love that you have to clarify the method even. That's so funny to me.
Yeah.
Oh my God. What a tedious, weird society. Sorry.
It is.
Yeah.
No. And so, so sobriety takes many different forms. And I think the biggest misnomer that I think really hurts a lot of people is, I have so many people, Mike, that come up to me and they're like, "Oh, I'm sober, but I'm still microdosing and smoking weed, and I did coke, on Thursday, and but I haven't had a drink in an hour and a half." And I'm like, "Cool, cool, cool, cool. We are not the same." So, like, people attribute, in Webster's dictionary may need to change this or make a big broadcast, but like, so sober in the societal sense, right,
Mhm.
is anything that doesn't alter your brain, chemically. That is not the Webster definition, but like, something that doesn't alter you from the neck up, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And people, I think it's a very human response because of just the way we've been conditioned through language and society is people only attribute the word sober to alcohol.
Yeah.
But sober is anything that affects you and imbalances you from the neck up. So like smoking weed is not sober. Taking mushrooms is not sober. Doing cocaine is not sober, right?
Yeah.
So people, if people could understand and grasp the, just like the connotation of what sobriety actually is, then I think maybe people could actually have maybe better conversations with themselves about whether or not that they need help or they have a problem. And now, if you want to take it one step further, this is really how the sausage is made. Sobriety, when you are grateful enough to make it to a room and have a sponsor and work the steps and, really understand what Alcoholics Anonymous means. And it's not just about not drinking or doing drugs. Everybody's welcome. If you have a heroin problem, you are welcome in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. If you have a cocaine problem, you are welcome, in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. Because here's another misnomer. Alcoholism is really just a broader term for compulsive abusive behavior.
Wow.
So if you are doing something alcoholically, like overeating food, sex with multiple partners, paid for or unpaid for, doing things that break your emotional sobriety, like having anger issues, having destructive issues, breaking things, flying off the handle in traffic, like that's where you start to get to these sub layers of what sobriety really means. So we talk about emotional sobriety, and we go, I think a lot of us, when we're not like counting days and we don't have that compulsion to drink or use, and it gets removed, which happens in the promises. I am grateful to be one of those people where I don't have the compulsion to drink or use if something goes bad or if something goes good.
Mm-hmm.
But I keep going to the rooms and the meetings because I don't know emotionally sometimes how to deal with life on life's terms. So emotional sobriety is kind of like the graduate school level diploma that you get, and you get to work on if you get to work through the initial reasons why you came there, to stop drinking and using, to get your life together, to get your life back, whatever it is that brought you there.
Mm-hmm.
So emotional sobriety would be like another sub layer of doing right in the world and doing right for yourself.
Mm-hmm. So you've touched on so many things I want to explore, and thank you. They're all awesome and all brilliant. I love the way you articulate things. You use the word imbalance, and I was struck by that only because that is also like an ancillary part of this conversation to me, is like, I used to think all things in moderation, including moderation. I do not think that anymore. I'm 43, and that just sounds really stupid and like something someone in their 20s would say. But with that said, I do understand something about balance. So throwing out alcohol, drugs, and anything else that changes chemically from the head up, the neck up, as you said, what do you think, like, and this is just kind of the weird questions I wanted to ask you. Do you think, like, if someone gets obsessed with like the Meta headset or like a VR headset and they're like constantly in a virtual reality chamber, or someone's obsessed with jumping out of planes and that thrill, do you think they're leading like a balanced life? Do you think there's like any judgment or difference, or do you think really it is about a chemical versus like an activity, like runner's high even?
I think if you ask 100 different people, they're going to give you 100 different responses.
Okay. Yeah.
And I don't, I could give you my opinion, but I think I'll abstain from
No,
that
let's
one.
table it and maybe it'll come back. Yeah, no, it's because and you're the only person I want to have this conversation with because I really like you. And also, I meant to make a joke earlier. The only time I've seen you like your nervousness was when I led you to the 7.5 like wrong Mexican restaurants in a row, and you were starving. And I was like, oh, I'm pretty sure this is the day our friendship ended. Like this guy's gonna murder me. So I just thought that was funny that I did see like that side of you, and I was like, wow,
That was funny.
yeah,
That was funny.
that was hilarious.
Well, you know, when you're somebody like me, one of the only things you really get to look forward to is delicious Mexican food or a good meal, and when you with that, Mike, you're at the short end of a very big stick.
And actually, that's kind of like the overall question I wanted to ask is like, as I'm not like working towards being sober so much as I just find myself being sober more and more and liking it more and more. But with that said, I also actually worry about like what is going to happen if I keep peeling back like what makes me happy, what will I be left with? And my original problem is food. Like that is my problem. So I like I can smoke weed and not overeat. Like that's like a life skill I have that like
That's
a lot
amazing.
of people don't. So I'm just curious like what do you think are like also you said something else, so I'm going to tie two things in at once. There's also just like people who never wanted to try drinking and never wanted to try drugs, and they're just like always, so they don't like go to meetings and like talk about strategies for it. So that's kind of the part I want to get to is like, where is our society headed? How did we get here? Do you think we screwed up, or do you think this is just normal and this is just how monkeys who develop the ability to make alcohol and drugs would end up?
I think there's a lot I can wax poetic on. So the first thing is there's a lot to unpack.
No, that's fine. I said a lot, and now I expect you to say a lot in return. So
peeling back the layers and wondering what's left, that's a really great question because honestly, we talk about that. Like people are like, I made it to these rooms. My life is now over. I am out of options. Yeah, maybe a little bit. Or you can reframe all of that, which takes a lot of work, and realize now you have all the options, right? You don't. Right? Like you don't have to do the things that everybody else does. I thrive on being a contrarian, a positive contrarian. And I love the fact that I get to do things differently than everybody else. And I don't feel alone doing it because I know that there's other men and women in the world that do what I do successfully. And what sobriety has allowed me to do is find joys in simpler things in life. I love that I wake up at 5:30 in the morning, not hungover, and I journal and I pray and I go to a meeting and I make coffee. I love the coffee ritual. I get to make my coffee and I get to exercise. These are things I never had time for or willingness or energy to do because I was just in pain. I was hurting and I was, thinking about, oh, where did I leave my 3 credit cards last night? How did I get home? Where did I put that? Do I have to apologize? Why am I bleeding? Like, why is there a chicken wings in my bedroom? Like what, I had to pick up the pieces and it was like always 1 step forward, 10 steps back. So I just, Mike, like if you knew like just how grateful I feel about how I've sprung forward so much and been able to get so much so quickly, it's like, I've just really been able to find a lot of joy in living the life that I've been able to live and being grateful for the things I have. And you hopefully you rediscover a lot of those things, really good conversations with people, going to the beach. If you have the luxury of going to the beach, having a coffee with a friend, enjoying a movie and remembering the movie, going to a concert and remembering the concert. Here's something that's really big for me. Like people used to take me home and I had no idea who they were. Not like, like to hook up because no one wanted to hook up. Yeah. I'm talking about like make sure I got home safely.
Yeah.
So I love the fact that I get to be of service to people that I know I can give them a safe ride home. And I can pick you up and I can drop you off and I can take photography and do my photos and just, and just do them because I love doing them. And I can show up early and I can be the best compliment anybody's ever given to me. It's my friend Shauna. And she said, the best thing I know about you is like you're reliable. It still hits me like a ton of bricks, dude. Like my eyes are welling up. Like the fact that I get to be reliable, not reliable like, oh, Sean's gonna show up and he's gonna fall through the glass table and he's gonna, and he's gonna fucking make an ass out of himself. It's like, no, Sean's gonna show up and he's gonna show up early. He's gonna be the first one there and the last one to leave, and he's gonna do right. Yeah. Like those things. So to answer your question about like what are you left with? Well, yeah, you get to like for you get to be there present for your children. They get 100% of dad, not 38.5% of dad. They get 100% of dad, right? Your partner gets 100% of Mike, and you get to show up in these people's lives. And this is not easy. This is not easy to raw dog life like that. And people's lives are tough. I'm very lucky and very blessed. People wonder how I'm able to do what I'm able to do and go and do what I'm able to go do. And like, if I was drinking and using, dude, like I wouldn't be able to get to do any of this shit, dude. It would be 100 times harder than what it is now. But I'm able to Tetris this life together because I don't have the biggest albatross on my back that would make it impossible. So I really think you get to kind of rediscover life, like kind of having a child and you get to watch 80s movies with them or 90s movies and you get to watch it through their eyes, or, have Christmas with them and get to experience your first Christmas over. Like, I don't have a child, but this is what I've heard from other parents, right?
No, it's really accurate.
And I think that's what life is. You get to really, when you do the work, that's what really matters. When you do the work and you really are in recovery, you really get to kind of understand what this life is and how lucky you are. You get to make it on this other side. And when you live in a town like Los Angeles, where the haves and the have-nots are separated so greatly, I literally like step over, not because like I'm a king, but like I step over homeless fucking people on a regular basis when I go on my runs, dude. And we have a saying in the program that says, for the grace of God, go I. Because that could be me.
Yeah.
And I just have acceptance and gratitude for how far I've come. And I keep going in the same direction that I'm able to go to. Otherwise, that one step, like that could be me. So I just really try to just be lucky and grateful for all the things that I'm able to look forward to now. And, my personality still wants me to like, no, dude, just like, I was in Vegas last week. It's like, no, go down to the casino and go like troll the floor, like go look for chicks, like go do that, and like you have to have like these like conversations with yourself. It's like, no, dude, even Jerry Seinfeld's like, dude, nothing good happens after midnight. He's like, after I'm, even in my 20s and 30s, he's like, after my show, dude, I would be in bed by like 11:30 because nothing good happens after midnight. Yeah. And I'm like, okay.
What?
And now the other question, I was going to say, so you said something about like, how do we get here, like society-wise?
Yes, no, I did want to know this. Yes, please.
So in my own personal opinion, I'm not speaking for society. I'm not a, societal anthropologist or anything along those lines. But, it's just, I think about this a lot. Like, what if like alcohol was replaced with heroin? Yeah. What if we, instead of like alcohol, and we did for a point, there were opium dens. Totally. Like, what if like going to the local bar was like going to the local smack house? Like, how amazing would that be? It's like everybody did heroin and alcohol was super shunned, and fentanyl was like the norm, right? Like, it's just, I think it's just kind of like the great mystical Oz, like casting aside on everybody that this is okay. And this is normal, and this is how people do, and this is what it means to be an adult. So that's why kids want to do it, right? It makes you cool. Yes,
that's a huge
It makes
factor,
you refined. Yeah. Like with smoking in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, like cool people smoke,
Yeah.
And like rappers and other musicians, that party rock star lifestyle, like I'm doing Xans, I'm drinking syrup, I'm smoking big blunts, like, it's all of that gratification permeates into society, making it okay. And if you want to take it one step further, I am, pharmaceuticals help people in a lot of ways, but also they are the devil, and they're overprescribed, and people are over medicated, and people don't think they have a problem They don't think they're abusing Xanax alcoholically or Klonopin or any of these other, pharmaceuticals that are out there because they're directed by a doctor.
Yeah.
And people trust
thank you.
doctors.
Yeah.
And that makes me fucking irate.
Me too.
That makes me irate. And I feel bad for those people because, no, it's legal. It's fine. I'm using it because a professional is prescribing it to me. I'm not taking it because Miguel is selling me $5 snack bags in downtown. I am prescribed Oxycontins, so I'm allowed to use them as much as I want and crush them up on the marble countertop and blow lines of them. It's like, dude, you are no different from anybody else that I walk over on the streets of Santa Monica, dude. So it's a society thing, man.
No, and I totally agree. And you've literally gone past like my talking points in my head and what I wanted. And seriously, you're a brilliant person to talk to. And I we've had like off-air like conversations about sobriety. I'm obsessed with this, and I have been my whole life. And I remember being a kid and like looking forward to seeing if I had a drinking problem. I know that sounds crazy to like probably a lot of people listening, but like it just was like this thing. Like I remember being like watching all my friends start drinking at 15. I started late. Like my friends started at like 14, 15, and I started at 16. I remember like watching them and just being like, I don't know about this. But I have one last question, and it's just because I know your personality and you kind of touched on it. So I talked about how I used to be heavy, and then when I lost weight, people who knew me would ask for like help, people who were heavy, and I would always happily help them. I'd be like, oh, here's like a handful of different methods. You need to do this. Discipline is hard. I'm sure it's a lot like being sober, like call a friend, be accountable, blah, blah, blah. But one of the hardest things for me now is like I don't look like I used to be heavy like when you meet me, and like I don't act like it, but on the inside I feel that way. So when I see people are heavy and I can tell they're unhappy about it, like it's just a thing. Like I'm sure, and I'm trying to relate this to you and drinking. When you meet someone who drinks and you can just tell that they would be much better off not drinking, but they're not even close to like understanding that or getting there. How hard is it to not help someone versus how hard is it to just try to help someone anyway? Like, what's that line for you, specifically with alcohol? Want more interesting conversations? Head over to mikeyop.com and sign up for a premium subscription. You'll get bonus podcasts, essays, and other goodies. Plus, it's the #1 way to support the show. Just go to mikeyop.com, MIKEYOPP.com, and click subscribe, and we'll send you a link. Thank you.
Well, once again, there's a lot to unpack there.
Okay.
Well, one, I was obese.
Yeah, I do know that. I just didn't want to out you, so to speak. But yeah.
No, but my life's an open book, bro.
Yeah, I know.
And I don't know.
As a formerly fat person, I never know how to address it with other people. I'm comfortable as all hell too, and you are. So yeah.
I love telling my journey because it just makes me feel good about myself, about how far I've come, because I totally forget and I beat myself up, and I also say it to other people to let them know that it's okay and there's a way out. And, I was 330 pounds at my worst in October 2017, and then, was able to lose the weight. And I have that, the first picture on my phone is the phone from that day when I left the doctor's office.
Wow.
And it's the first one. And actually I sent it to a friend of mine I was just in Egypt with because she didn't believe me. And I was like, yeah, this is October 2017. And she's like, I don't know how I'm looking at the same person.
Wow.
And that's a really amazing thing to hear. And one last thing I remember this is like October or September 20, I think it was 19, when I was up to I think I lost like 100 pounds at that point. I ended up losing 140 naturally. And I was with these two women at this party in the hills. So I just totally lied. I was at a party in the hills.
That's so funny.
In October 2019 at my friend Drew's house. It was his birthday party, and beautiful women. I mean, both 10s, really nice people too. And I sent it to my dad. He's like, "Oh, I want to see a photo of you." And he goes, "Who's the guy in the middle?" And I was like, "Dad, that's me." And he was like, "Holy." He didn't even say who the girls were because they're smoking hot. But he was like, "No, who's that?" I was like, "Dad, that's me." He was like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's your son." So that's a really big statement. So
that's so cool.
Where do I draw the line? Well, so first
again,
things
with
first.
Sobriety, not fat people, just because it's more out of people's wheelhouse. Yeah.
Well, let me just talk
You can do
about fat
both.
people
Yeah.
real quick because
Let's talk about fat people.
I don't know if you know this, but since we last, actually, no, I think maybe when we spoke, I had already done this. So I worked on 2 seasons as a producer director for My 600-Pound Life.
I knew
And
of this, but we have not talked about it. Yeah.
okay, so that for me was that was a really interesting experience. And I'll gloss over all the the main reasons why it was interesting, but like but to be with morbidly obese people was a real kind of like just like look in the mirror too, because food is an addiction, right? And no one talks about that, but there is an Overeaters Anonymous. And like, how do you tell these people that they're going to die of diabetes or congenital heart failure or any host of comorbidities that are in their near future if they don't put down the big gulp? So I would share with them at times, my journey, and at times, if I felt like they were serious. But unfortunately, 98% of those people that sign up for that show, they're not serious. And it's like sobriety, and they don't want to do the work. Like, you don't show up to Alcoholics Anonymous and like just get sober. You don't go to treatment and recovery and just get sober. You don't go on that show and just lose weight. Like, in all those instances, you have to put forth work. You have to diet. You have to lose X amount of weight to get the surgery. And then for the surgery to work, you have to change your lifestyle to maintain the weight so you're healthy and don't blow back up. These people, majority of them, thought that, oh, I signed up for the show, I'm going to get the surgery, I'm going to lose weight and I'll be fine. They didn't realize they had to actually work for it. Aside from the stuff the production company made you do, you also needed to get to a certain safe weight to be operated on. And then you needed to have a lifestyle change, very much like sobriety. You have to show up. You have to do work in sobriety. You have to change your life, and you have to change your lifestyle. You have to change out who you hang out with, what you do on a regular basis, where you go, what you think about, what you ingest, all of the things. Same way you have to do that when you want to lose weight. So where do you draw the line in both instances? So first things first, in Alcoholics Anonymous, we don't shoot our wounded, and B, we're also not clinicians, and we also are the first to not declare that person is an alcoholic. That is up to the person. We leave them. We give them that grace. We are not here to diagnose anybody. Now, the duck may look like a duck, and may talk like a duck and act like a duck, but we don't call it a duck. We let them come to that realization, and then when they make that realization or are curious about said realization, then we will be there to help pick them up. So where do you do that? That's another Al-Anon tenet. It's like, well, where do you infiltrate somebody's life? And it's like, well, you really can't, like, no one's going to want to get sober unless they actually are the ones that declare it and then start to do the work. Then we can kind of like help, inundate them or assimilate them into, this new lifestyle. But we are not the ones to declare those things. And it's difficult. I've dealt with it with friends. I've dealt with it with family. I've dealt with it with acquaintances and work professionals and a ton of different people. And we could ask them questions that will maybe help them make that realization. And we give personal experiences about our past that show how we came to that realization. And we hope that those examples will help them make the same declaration. So I hope that answers your question.
No, it definitely does. And it's really fascinating. And it's just, again, I had you come on because I just had a feeling this would be entertaining to me, and that's always how I book guests. But then I also just think that we're getting to a weird point in society where, like, as you alluded to and even directly talked about, like, there's like influencers on Instagram, like advertising sobriety and then also like weed pills. And they're talking about like, and like ayahuasca and Special K don't count. And like, and it's blowing my mind. The things I would worry about before I had kids aren't even coming to a head, but I still think that I'm not raw dogging it. I think there's a challenge that is actually probably spiritual. That's like the thing I'm working towards in my head, is that I feel, you said you get up and you pray, and I didn't ask you if you believe in a God and who you pray to. I just intuitively understood what you meant, and you can clarify now if you'd like to, but I do feel as I get older that there's like a purpose to the gruel, to the grind, and escaping it in mini doses is probably just delaying that purpose. So what do you think about that?
Well, there's a lot.
All right, and then we'll end the podcast after this, but I do want to hear all your answers. So yeah, you got the floor.
Well, I don't want to end the podcast, but
I just have two kids yelling in the background. So
okay. Well, I will say the one thing about God is, the thing about God is a lot of people, myself included, grew up maybe, in a religious family or in a religious community or whatever, and it was forced down your throat. And, we have, where was God there when they took my mother? Or where was God there when they took my leg? Or whatever it is, right? And people, like the word sober, have a very biased, and rationally so, vision of God. And one of the biggest conceptions about, AA is, you have to believe in this dogma. So, no, you don't, dude. No, you don't. That's why in the book, it literally says a God of your own choosing, of your own understanding. Mm-hmm. And I've had people obstinately tell me, I will not join your cult because I don't believe in God. And it's like, okay, God, okay, bud, like, take a step back and realize that you can make your God, not the Catholic dogma God, not the white guy with a beard and a staff in the sky, not the Santa daddy that grants wishes and takes, little children and puppies away from you. It could be anything. There's a guy that logged onto my meeting a couple weeks ago, and he said his God was the Force from Star Wars, dude. There's another guy that said tacos were his. These are real examples.
Yeah.
The waves on the ocean, a doorknob. These are real examples. A lot of guys will take the acronym God, group of drunks, and make the people in their home group or in the room that they frequent their higher power. And you know what? Higher powers, which is the nice other word that we like to use, mm-hmm. Higher power could be anything. So when I was a child, right, I love Dogma by Kevin Smith, and I love what Linda Fiorentino says about faith. She goes, as a kid, faith is like a glass of water. It's easy to fill up. And as you get older, the glass gets bigger and it's harder to fill up, right?
Yeah.
And I generalized it. But so when I was a child, it was the Santa daddy in the sky. It was the white guy with the beard and the staff. That's just like kind of where my imagination took it based off of the text and going to church and Sunday school and Catholic school and whatever. But then as I get older, I realized that God is around me. It's in this conversation I'm having with you. It's in the cat that's sleeping in my roommate's room next door. It's in doing right by somebody. And mine is manifested now into like just the universe and the cosmic energy that we all feel around us. And that's probably the most like LA woo-woo I'm ever going to say.
I don't think it is.
Like, so when I pray, I just pray aloud. And when I'm praying aloud, I'm praying to the universe. I'm praying to the spiritual energy that is beyond my comprehension and understanding, which is what kind of God is, mm-hmm. to the life force that is. So I don't pray to the Santa Daddy. I don't pray to the Catholic dogma or the Judaic or or anything like that. Mm-hmm. I just pray aloud and hope that the universe hears me and will help direct me in my thinking and my actions and my will to be right-sized. So I think there was something else that you asked in there, but I was on a rant.
I love the way you ended that, and I think that's the best way to end this podcast, because you actually brought it back to like the actual name of the show, Coffin Talk, and like death and life and what's in between. But I've already asked you what you think happens when you die. So if you did revise it, it sounds like you sort of have. But are you?
I do have a thing.
Yeah,
I do have a thing about that. So real quick, I mean, where I can't remember what I said last time because I talked too much, but
no, that's okay.
What I do love, and actually physically you remind me of him, is I'm a big fan of Ryan Holiday and Stoicism.
Yeah, I love Stoicism.
I can't quote, Epictetus or Seneca or Marcus Aurelius as well, or Thich Nhat Hanh as well as he can. But I do I read his daily emails. I just finished what's the book? Right Thing Right Now. And a big thing that he's been pushing, I want to say over the past year is, and we've all heard this Latin phrase, is memento mori. And it's, remember, we will die. It's like, remember death, right? Mm-hmm. And it can be very morbid, and Stoicism kind of gets like a bad name, and they think they're all these, disgruntled men that walk around and nothing is, good. And, we just must be hard edged and whatever. It's like, well, no, it's like just memento mori is really another thing about like sobriety too, and is to just remain present and remain grateful. Mm. And I can't remember which one of the Stoics it was, but like, he's like, when I go and I say goodnight to my child, I say memento mori because he might not be here in the morning. So I want to, honor this moment I have with them and love this moment because I don't know when the next moment is going to be. So, and that's just kind of it. If I get taken off this earth tomorrow, I hope I don't, but at least I had this moment. I had clarity. I had love. I had peace. I had presence. I had acceptance. I had great accomplishment, and I had low lows. And it's just, it's just taking the negative and just bringing it back to how I started this, and just reframing it into the positive. And reframing mental mori, I think, is really, really important.
That's awesome. That's what I'm going to name the show. Actually, no, we don't do that anymore. Dang it. Oh well, it's still cool. And I just want to let you know that you are a prolific, profane individual because, like me, you tend to flavor with salt and pepper the word F and SH. And the reason I'm saying that is because I have to go back and read them all. So I just want to let you know that you said the F word at minute mark 4:55, 10:58, 11:05, 20:25, 24:45, 28:20. Then you said the combo of S and SH at 29:50. Then the F word again at 30:05, 30:15, 33:50 was a SH. And you had an SH at 7:20. And again, I'm saying the abbreviation because I really don't want to have to bleep out all of this. 41:55, another F. 42:57, another F. And then an SH at 43:15. So as long as you don't say another one, we can hold you to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. But remember, 15, but you hit the combo at 29:50. You hit both of them in one phrase. And that was my favorite moment of the podcast. So thank you.
I will refrain for you from doing any more work. And what did you say was it 29? What was the number?
29:50 was the combo point. No, that was the minute marker. You hit 15 total, which is awesome.
15. Okay, yeah. But what was it last time? Like 58?
Oh, it was much higher last time. So it was hilarious.
I think it was 58. Yeah.
And it's funny because if you're someone. If you're someone I didn't know, I would have said something at like the third one, like, hey, just so you know, I have to bleep these. But I love it. I actually think it's awesome. And I wish I didn't have to bleep it. It's just Apple and their stupid policy. So,
well, I was thinking about it as I was saying it. And then I was like, well, I'm going to keep going even more so I can create more work because I'm just such a bleep hole. See, I self-edited there.
Yeah, there you go.
Because I don't care about you. But once again, the reframe. I did better this time than last time.
And you're just seriously awesome, and thank you for coming on the show. And I'm rushing a little bit because my kids are yelling. But everyone who's listening, we talked very little about it, but he is an incredible professional photographer. If nothing else, find his Instagram and just follow him because you will see amazing photographs. I'm not joking. Like, I cannot testify enough to the quality of his work, and also just the situations he's in is incredible too. Being a photographer, in my opinion, is not just knowing how to work lenses and lights. It's not just knowing how to work a camera. It's knowing how to be somewhere. It's knowing how to not invade what you're shooting. There's so many things to it. I'm just touching on it. So ShawneeCameras.com, www.ShawneeCameras.com, and from there you can find his Insta and Facebook and all that, and Twitter. Anything else you want to add, Sean?
I will say that thank you for that glowing review. But yeah, I would recommend following me. Stay tuned. The next few months are going to get pretty weird and wild. So if you want to see some wild international travel and some very interesting situations, yes, it's gonna get really nuts starting next Sunday. I'll be on the road for the next 2 months. So yes, stay tuned.
Awesome. And we will have you back on the show again at some point, I'm sure. So thank you, everyone listening. My name is Mike Oppenheim. You have been listening to Coffin Talk. My guest has been Sean O'Grady, and we will see you soon.